Today on episode 88 of Rail Talk, it's finally Derby week. John and I can barely contain our excitement. We preview the Run for the Roses, welcome Lindsay Schanzer to talk about the NBC production of the show, and touch on the Oaks as well. I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds, and today's the day, John. Shaggy Joe will be no more later today. So all my fans out there are wondering when Clean Cut, Most Handsome Joe will be back. He'll be there at Churchill Downs this week. Don't you worry.
Jonathan Green, general manager at DJ Stable, Joe, and I too am getting the buff and blow haircut before the Kentucky Derby. I am so excited for everything that goes on, the pomp, the circumstance, and of course the races.
Let's go. The opinions expressed on Rail Talk are those of hosts Joe Bianca and John Green and do not reflect those of anybody we work with or work for. Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade. TaylorMade's got it all covered, from sales to stallions to boarding to partnerships. Go check out their beautiful website to learn more about why when you're with them, your family, and they just have it all covered. You know, if you have yearlings, you're trying to figure out which sale to go to. There's no more foremost expert in the business in terms of finding the best realization for your yearling investment. We obviously have the Keeneland sale, the Fasig sales. Which one is the best place to go to for you? Stallion roster, burgeoning stallion roster that we mentioned. John and I, not me, but West Point and DJ Stable partnered on that Knicks Go Colt. He sold out from our end. I know John and DJ are really excited, so he went fast, and I think with good reason. He's a super athlete, and the rest of the stallion roster is. And
he's now named Ewing.
Ewing, yes.
So you can watch it you can put it on your stable mail.
Yes. PILO, please don't call him Ewing. But yeah, no, we can't wait to see him at the races in a little bit. But that stallion roster is awesome and is only going to get better. So you definitely got to get in on the ground floor. Go to TaylorMadeFarm.com. Learn more about all the services they provide on all facets of the industry. All right, so we've been counting down the days for months and months since the dead of winter. It's now a beautiful day here in New York City. In Louisville, might be a little rainy this week, but Saturday looks nice. It is the 151st Kentucky Derby. John and I obviously have been on this magical ride with Sandman and all the rest of our partners, so we could not be more thrilled. Like, I haven't even let my mind go to the place where I'm imagining we win. You know, I can't even go there. Like, if we get there, I'm going to soak it all in. But I'm also going to soak in, like, every single day and every single hour that we're down there. You know, especially for West Point, it's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get into the actual race, John, like, you and Len have been doing this for a really long time, and this is your best shot to win. You've been in the Derby a couple times. Just give me a sense of like where you and your dad are at heading into Saturday.
You know, Joe, years ago, I would think about, when my head hit the pillow, little Johnny, when my head hit the pillow, I would dream about being in the Kentucky Derby. And when you get into the Derby, you get a little spoiled because you get to see everything that goes on. You go to the events, you go to the draw, you get interviewed, you talk to people, you get the excitement. But deep down inside, the past two times that we've done it with Song and a Prayer years ago, and then most recently with Helium, you never really think you have a shot. You know, there are always horses in there that are better. And quite frankly, if it was like an allowance race or a maiden race, or maybe not maiden, if it was an allowance race or a stake race, you'd look at it and you go, you know what? I don't want to run my horse at 40-1. It's just not worth it. But then you kind of get seduced into, this long shot, Rich Strike won, and Mind That Bird won, and all these like 30-40-1 shots that hit the board, and you let yourself kind of get out of common sense and dream a little bit. This is the first time, now fast forward to this year, this is the first time that I can tell you that we have a horse running the first Saturday of May where I think we have a legitimate chance. It's not like everything has to go perfect in order for us to hit the board. I'm not saying that we're the best horse in the race by any stretch of the imagination. There are 5, 6, 7 horses in here that, we'll talk about later that I think have legitimate shots. But this is like the first time where Friday night, when I, go to bed, I'm going to be thinking about the fact that we have a shot. Like, we have just as good a chance as the majority of horses in this race. And you always need racing luck when you have a 20-horse field. And you always need racing luck when there's 150,000, fans screaming at the top of their lungs at your horse. And all the other things that go on that the horses have never done before. But like, this is exciting, and it's exciting because I get to share it with my dad. I get to share it with friends. I get to share it with you guys, our great partners on Sandman. And to me, who's an introvert by nature, like, that's the most exciting part, is that I get to go and share this feeling and this experience with the people that I love. And you know what? We got a shot.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great way of putting it. And for me personally, I've only been to the Derby twice. I went in 2006 when Barbaro won, and I went in 2007 when Street Sense won. And both times I was working concession. Shout out to Steve Bick, my first job at the track, working concession. Before I did it at Saratoga, I was at the Carolina barbecue stand at the Derby in 2006 on the third floor grandstand, in 2007 in the infield.
Wow.
Infield was way more fun.
Yeah.
But I haven't been back since. It's been almost 20 years. So this is like a crazy full circle moment for me too, to come back to be part of a team with a chance to win it, when I never have gotten the opportunity to like really experience it from a fan's perspective, and certainly not from a participant's perspective. So I'm still like kind of pinching myself that this is really happening. And yeah, it's like I said, be where your feet are and try to soak it in.
Yes.
Because there's so much to think about and so many possibilities and potentialities to think and worry and stress about. But I'm really going to do my best to like center myself and enjoy the hell out of this, because you never know. This could be a once in a lifetime thing. Obviously, we hope we get back there with another shot in the coming years, but this could be our best chance, and we're going to soak it in.
Now, Joe, that's great advice. And the other thing that I'll say to you, that we asked Lindsay, like, what's the most exciting part of the week for her? For me personally, the two most exciting things are the draw and the walkover. And when you do the walkover on Saturday, you're going to see that. Remember when we used to go to baseball games and they would do the wave and you'd like see it go across? Well, it's a sound wave that happens. So as you're walking across the racetrack, around the circumference of the racetrack towards the paddock area, you're going to see all sides of you start to get, people start to stand up, they start to get rowdy, and you're going to all of a sudden get knocked over, like almost physically knocked over by the wave of sound that comes through you. And it feels like it permeates through your skin and your bones. And it's a little unnerving, at first, but it gives you so much energy and so much like enthusiasm to try, that you're ready to run the mile and a quarter in under 2 minutes. Like, that's how much geeked up energy you get and you store, and you start to you start to get on your toes, and you're gonna see by the time you get to the paddock, you're gonna be ready to knock out Mike Tyson. I mean, you're gonna feel it, and it's a really weird sensation. But I finally understand when professional athletes say like they feed off the energy of the crowd. Rarely do you go to a racetrack where you feel that energy. Usually you hear some knucklehead yelling, or you hear something going on, but this is like, it's like palpable. Like it permeates through your bones, and it's a really weird sensation. But if you can take it in and allow it to kind of fill every ounce and of your membranes of your entire being, it's a really cool feeling. It'll carry you into the paddock.
Yeah. I can't wait. I might cry during my old Kentucky home. Yeah. So keep a camera ready. Definitely gonna cry if we win, but I might cry in the lead up too. It's gonna be an emotional week, I think, in the best way possible. All right, let's talk about the actual race. I was okay with Sandman's draw in the 17 hole. I'd rather be further outside than further inside, especially the way the rest of the field was drawn. Like most of the speed is in the inside half of the field. So for us, the only speed to our outside is Owen Almighty in the 20 hole. So theoretically, if we just let him clear, Jose Ortiz is supposed to be able to get into a nice rhythm, get him out in the clear. He's going to lose ground, but I think as a closer, you're going to lose ground pretty much no matter what. Like unless you're Calvin Burrell and you somehow work out that mind that bird trip, you're going to have to go around some horses if you're a closer. So I was okay with the draw. To me, and Jim and I talked about this on the breakaway show, like there just has to be a fast pace in this race. Citizen Bull from the rail has to go. Neo Equos has to go from the inside. Rodriguez, maybe he doesn't have to go, but he won the Wood wire to wire. He's done his best running on the front end. You think he's going to go. Dwayne Lucas's horse, American Promise, is going to go. So that's 4 of the inside 5 horses who I think are going to be gunning for the front. You also have East Avenue, who's only one on the lead, and then Owen Almighty, as I mentioned, from the outside. Anything can happen. Obviously, maybe one of the Baffert horses takes back. But John, it's hard for me to see this race not having like a 45 and change half mile split.
Well, I agree with you, Joe. Not only is there so much speed in the race, but there's so much interior speed. As you mentioned, in the race. And the only way that Owen Almighty can win this race is if he gets to the front early, which means that he's going to have to expend a lot of energy from the 20 hole to get around everybody going into that first turn. So I at first, when I got to 17, I was like, but you know what? For the running style of our horse, of Sandman, it's actually not that much of a deterrent. It wouldn't matter if he was in the 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way to 17 or 18. It really wouldn't matter because Jose's a smart enough rider. The internal 4 or 5 are going to go. The horse on the way outside is going to go. And we're going to be sitting going to the first turn, maybe 4 wide, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a big deal. The bigger deal for us, and then we'll talk about the other horses in the race, because there are 19 other combatants.
Oh, there are?
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe that. But it is the fact that the one thing that Jose Ortiz said and that Christian Torres said is that when this horse gets going, you don't want him to stop. When he gets into gear and he gets into rhythm, because he's so long-legged, you want him to be able to keep going forward. So being on the outside is actually an advantage than being on the inside. Yeah, we're giving up some ground, but you also don't want to have to like shift gears down gear and then try to ramp up again, because it's just really, really difficult. One stat that I saw that I thought was really interesting, and again, it's a small sample, but the past 3 winners, Mystic Dan, Mage, and Rich Strike, respectively, were at the half mile pole in 8th, 16th, and 18th place, Joe. So this race that used to be dominated by horses that could have tactical speed and then carry it for the mile and a quarter, over the past few years has completely flipped on its side. And now it's the opposite. Now it's you let the speed go because of that energy that we talked about on the walkover and the energy that these horses are going to feel from both sides, the infield and the clubhouse. They're going to be a little spooked and they're going to go. And there's no greater time in the race than having, a stalker or a closer and sitting 10 lengths off it when they go 45 and change.
Yeah, no, and I think the other thing that kind of works in our favor is, this is, especially if there's a fast pace, it's all going to be about who can stay the mile and a quarter.
Right.
And like you said with Sandman, like he just feels like he's just getting going a mile and an eighth. So I just, unless he has like a nightmare trip, which, I pray doesn't happen, it's hard to see him flattening out like in the final furlong. Like he just eats up that ground. So, it's not an arrogant thing. Like I wouldn't trade places with anybody, honestly. Yeah. And that's not to say that there aren't other horses. Like Journalism, and we'll talk about him, is going to be a deserving favorite. Absolutely. It has a huge, huge chance, obviously. But I honestly would not trade places with anybody else, and we'll see how it shakes out. Journalism drew great. He drew great in the 8 hole. He's got the fastest race, that the 108 buyer he ran in the San Felipe. Obviously a really nice horse who's done very little wrong. The one question we had about him was that he's running a bunch of 5-horse fields, except for his maiden win. I think the thing that kind of counterbalances that is that he has tactical speed. Like he doesn't have to be, he's going to be in front of us, I would assume, at the quarter, at the half, probably at the 3 quarters. So he could work out a really, really nice trip just in that kind of second flight, middle of the pack, and get the first run on us. And that's the thing that worries me the most is like Journalism hits the front, the 8th pole. We still got like 5 or 6 lengths to make up, and he's just able to hold us off. He's the deserving favorite. He's the horse to beat. I'm not going to take 5-2 on him.
Right.
I think that's what the morning line said, which I just think is ridiculously short. Not just for him, but for pretty much any favorite in the Derby. It's not that kind of race where you want to take a 5-2 shot. Other horses that I think make a lot of sense, Sovereignty, one draw to our outside, but he's got to pick it up from a figure perspective. His biggest number is a 95 in the Fountain of Youth, a race that really kind of fell apart for him. He was second in the Florida Derby, regressed a little bit with a 92. I think Grande is really interesting. Jimmy and I were talking about this on the breakaway show. I know he's lightly raced, but he's moving in the right direction. I thought he ran gigantic in the Wood in a race where nobody else claimed. He drew right in the middle of the field, and with Johnny V up, he's going to have him in a good spot. That's just 2 of them. John, who are the other ones that you think have big chances?
Well, Yeah, the ironic thing about it is that that Grande is going to get scratched by a vet the morning of the race, just to,
Oh my God.
just to fulfill the destiny. But no, I don't wish that on anybody.
Oh
Obviously.
no, can you imagine?
I don't wish that on anybody, let alone our new
My
friend
God.
Mike Rapoli. I think that the two you mentioned, Joe, are certainly interesting. I have Burnham Square as a horse that I think is very, very intriguing in this race. I think he's only getting better, and he's only getting better as the races are getting longer. He drew a very, very comfortable, post in the 9 hole. Tistastic, I think, is another horse that's like us, where as these races go and go and go, he's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And really, if you cross out the Rebel, which wasn't a bad race, but it was really not indicative of his talent. And they pivoted and went to the furthest distance they could, which is the Louisiana Derby, going a mile and 3/16, and he rocked that field. In Louisiana Derby. So I think Tistastic is a horse that I like also. You mentioned us and Sovereignty, and those are really the ones that I was focusing on a really solid Kentucky Derby. But Joe, there's a couple of things, when we pulled the 17 hole, I got a couple of texts like, oh no, like, oh crap, you've never won. Nobody's ever won in the 17 hole, and they're 0 for 40 something. Okay. But there's going to be a lot of firsts that are going to happen, I think, if we have a chance to win. 17 post curse is over. Mark Casse, in his illustrious 2 Hall of Fame career, has never won the Kentucky Derby. Jose Ortiz is 0 for 9 in the Kentucky Derby, and no son of Tappet has ever won the Kentucky Derby.
That's right.
There's a lot of things that are against us in that sense. Okay, if you go through it, but when you go through the overall scope of the group, there's a lot of horses in the race that have like kind of a one-off that if they win, would be remarkable. Like there's 3 horses in the race that have never won on the dirt. Okay, I don't remember seeing that before. There's 5 additional horses that have never won a stake race of any kind, listed, restricted, graded, from the 2 horse all the way to even Baeza, if he gets in. There's horses that have never passed another horse before. So when you get 3 of those, like Rodriguez and East Avenue, et cetera, something's got to give, because you have to pass a horse. You're never going to go gate to wire in the Kentucky Derby, as far as that goes. And there's a couple of horses that have never been ridden by this jockey that's named on them before, let alone like 2 horses coming in from Japan that have never run in the United States. So there's a lot of horses have like kind of 1 or 2 offs where you go, oh, I'd be hesitant to bet on that horse because of blah, blah, blah. So I think you have to like throw all those biases out the window, or at least some of them out the window when you're handicapping a race like this, because there's really only a couple what I would call like bulletproof resumes, and the favorite's one of them. So, right off the bat, I throw out the favorite when I'm looking at a 20 horse field, because it's so difficult to navigate through. And that's, that's kind of my idiosyncrasy on it. But there's a lot of horses that have really solid resumes, but there's a lot of them that you can look back, and if they don't run any good, you can go, yeah, of course. It's not surprising because of like one of the reasons that I mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, this is just a race where I think you play it to collapse. And I think that the Oaks is kind of that same way. And we're going to talk about it in a little bit. You mentioned Burnham Square, who obviously has a big chance and is, you got to think is going to be better at a mile and a quarter. The wild card is Luxor Cafe. Yes. I know there's another Japanese horse in here, but Luxor Cafe has won 4 in a row. We saw how well Forever Young ran last year. He's got a nice turn of foot if you watch his replays. So I think he could be in with a shot at the 8th pole. The difference for me between him and Forever Young is Forever Young had been proven outside of Japan.
Exactly.
He went to the UAE and ran that big race in the UAE Derby. Yep. This horse has stayed in Japan, so you just have no idea what the competition behind him is, and he's got to get faster, just looking at his time form ratings. So I wouldn't throw him out. But again, like the Japanese money is going to crush him into dust in terms of his price. So I'm not looking to use him, in a wagering sense, except maybe defensively.
Right.
Just looking before we move on, a couple horses that I think could hit the board at a big price. I think Chunk of Gold is one of those that could, pick up the pieces and run third or fourth. I think you mentioned Tiztastic. I think Publisher too. He ran second to us in the Arkansas Derby. You got to think that he's going to like the added ground as well.
Yep.
So I think there's a couple. He's got IRAD, so that helps a lot.
Yeah.
I just think there's, this is the kind of race, if you are playing it to collapse, maybe you don't want to use those horses on top in your multi-race wagers, but there are a couple in here, maybe Final Gambit, if you think he's going to like the dirt, a couple horses in here that get that, shout out to West Point, that kind of commanding curve,
right?
Go up for second at like 50-1. I think there's a few in there that you really want to take a look at. Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the number one accounting firm in the horse business. Is one reason that they're at the top. No other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do. Cannot wait to see Len and the rest of the Green Group family down in Louisville. It's just going to be such an exciting week for them. But the business never stops. Len and his tax consultants will help you if you file an extension. Get ready for that extension deadline, and they'll help you find the most savings and all of the benefits that you can possibly realize from your investment in the horses. It doesn't matter which segment of the racing industry you're in, they'll take care of you. Complimentary offer for listeners of Rail Talk, complimentary confidential half-hour consultation if you call them up at, what's that number, Michael?
732-634-5100. Green Group.
Or go to greenco.com. But you don't have to take it from me. Take it from this satisfied customer, one of our favorite bloodstock agents in the business, Kim Valerio.
I've been using Len Green and his team at the Green Group for over a decade. Having a diverse portfolio of mares, foals, yearlings, racehorses, pinhooks, as well as owning a little farm, it was important that I had a firm that understood tax code for our industry. They've done a terrific job in helping me project year in and year out and save me money. Len and John Green have been so good to me both personally and professionally. The Green family are salt of the earth people, and the firm and all of the people there follow right in their footsteps. I highly recommend anybody in the industry to use the Green Group.
Thank you, Kim. And I know you're super excited for Sandman this Saturday as well, having shortlisted him at last year's sale. So good luck to you. Good luck to all of us. And good luck to Len and the Green Group. Good luck to you. If you don't need luck, but good luck to you finding your way to Len and the Green Group at greenco.com or calling them up at that number at 732-634-5100. Do it soon. So we're so thrilled to bring this next guest to the Rail Talk studio. She's NBC Sports senior producer of horse racing and the college football studio show, Lindsay Schanzer. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Hi, guys.
Oh, it's so great to have you. And thank you for making time in what is undeniably a very, very busy week for you and everybody in the NBC production crew. It's such a unique broadcast because, most sports broadcasts, there's like a little bit of an intro and then it's pretty much just calling the action. Mm-hmm. This is the opposite of that. It's pretty much all intro and then a few minutes of action here and there. What are some of the big challenges of that, kind of having to fill so much airtime with relatively little action on the racetrack?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a way to describe it. We have obviously some great undercard races sprinkled in and out, but for the most part, we really do treat it as a 4.5-hour introduction to a 2-minute race. So it is a challenge to make sure that we are keeping the audience entertained. And one of the biggest challenges in general is knowing that we have a very dedicated horse racing audience that watches horse racing throughout the year. And certainly they want to pay attention to the undercard races. They want to know the ins and outs of the race itself. But, a large part of our audience, a much larger part of our audience, I should say, maybe is watching horse racing for the first time in the year, the only time in the year. So we're trying to introduce them to the sport, introduce them to the field, and of course, what the event has to offer. So, some people may not love seeing all the fashion and the drinks and the traditions, but we know a lot of our audience does. So that's a piece of it. And it's trying to really balance as much as possible over that 4.5 hours leading up to the race. A little bit of racing, a little bit of fashion, a little bit of tradition, a little bit of celebrity, a little bit of food, whatever it is, in a balanced way that so whenever you're tuning in, you're getting a little bit of something everywhere.
Yeah, and it must be a little bit of like orchestrating a circus and kind of herding cats all at the same time. So give everyone an idea of like how many people you're in touch with, during the course of the 5-6 hours, how many different directions you're giving, how many cameras, like pull the curtain back, kind of give us an idea of the mechanics of it all.
A lot is the simple way to put it. It is a highly coordinated effort with, a few hundred people on our crew, technical and production, 300 plus. We have a massive group of people working on this to put this thing together. And, as far as direction goes, I mean, we've got, I want to say this year it's 14 members of our announce team surrounded, all around Churchill Downs, some roving, some kind of in place. Larry Colmus is always in his booth, but Brittany Urton's going to be anywhere and everywhere around Churchill Downs. So it's not just coordinating with them, it's coordinating with the assistants that are walking them around, the spotters who are making sure we're identifying the right people, the camera people, the camera assistants, the audio tech to make sure they know where we're going, and everyone, of course, within the production team. But, as far as a peek behind the curtain, I'll give you just a very brief look. We put a format together like this. It's 30-something pages long. It's got a lot going on. Everything is scripted to a T, with the understanding that anything could change at the drop of a hat. Mm-hmm. And then we adjust to it on the fly. So we've got 29 segments over 5 hours, and we write it up. I put this thing together, the first edition of it, 2 weekends ago. Just to be prepared for whatever's going to come. And it says, we're doing this for 30 seconds, we're doing this for 15 seconds, this for 2:15, this for 3 minutes, whatever it is. And it takes you through 5 hours. And all of that takes an enormous amount of coordination. And we set it up, and, we set it up 2 weeks ago with Tapan Street in the field. Now he's not in the field. It's not set up for Baeza, but we certainly may get him. So we're constantly reacting to what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm curious, like what it's like in the truck or on the headset when you guys are doing this, because I would think it takes like a certain type of personality to be able to do this, like to be calm, to not freak out, to be able to adjust on the fly, like you said. Do you or your people like meditate or anything? Is there anything like outside of work that you do to kind of get prepared for this level of potential chaos?
Just try to be super prepared, I think, is the best way to do it. I wouldn't say I necessarily meditate so much, although I'm probably don't know this. I'm 6.5 months pregnant, so I've taken on a bit of yoga.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So I had a little bit of stress to it on top of everything else. But just trying to find as much zen as possible while things are going crazy around you. But I do think preparation and communication is the easiest way to feel that calm. It's going in, knowing the field, knowing the connections, knowing what you're trying to accomplish. We obviously have, outside of all of what I would like to do in the narrative of the 5-hour show, and then what needs to be done, we of course have all kinds of partners across Churchill Downs, within NBC, elements that kind of have to make their way within the show, and we got to find room for those things and make them feel authentic to the show. So it's, trying to please everyone, but most importantly, the audience.
And Lindsay, when you go into an event like this, and you said it's constantly changing because, Baeza could, draw in, and that would change the complexion of the race. Tapan Street, is out, and that kind of changes the way things going. When they do the draw, that changes the complexity of the race. But you guys have like features done ahead of time. Of those features, are there certain ones that you're like really excited about, or you're like, hey, that would be a really cool story to be able to promote to the rest of America so they could, kind of see what goes on owning and training a racehorse?
Yeah, it's interesting. We do try to plan as much ahead of time as we can, because that gives us the opportunity to do more dynamic shoots, on location, not always at Churchill Downs, for example. And we have the benefit of covering much of the road to the Kentucky Derby, or at least the 100-point prep races. So we follow the stories as we go and have a good sense, if a horse wins a 100-point prep race, if they want to go, they're in, they have enough points. So, in the case of journalism, obviously we knew he was the real deal, but certainly earned enough points to go. And his trainer, Michael McCarthy, has had a hell of a year. He's been out of house and home due to the California fires. And we knew, pretty immediately between that and just the emotion of coming in with the Derby favorite was going to be a story we wanted to tell America and introduce them to this trainer they may not know so well. We knew this was going to be the return of Bob Baffert, and there's a lot that goes with that, but it's absolutely going to be a headline going into the race. And we knew we wanted to sit down and spend some time talking to him, which we will do. I will say probably the piece I'm most excited about that isn't quite done yet, but I'm personally excited about it. We've got 89-year-old Dwayne Lucas, who's back in the race,
Yep.
is going to
Coach.
spend the day with Steve Kornacki, who is an enormous fan of Wayne's and has been his whole life. And, some people don't necessarily get to see that about Steve and know really how passionate he is about horse racing. And Wayne was kind of his first, love in the sport in terms of someone he would always bet on and really track his horses. So he's so excited to spend the day with him. And I think it's going to be a unique perspective into somebody who's been around for a long time.
Steve was actually on our show a couple weeks ago and was talking about the fact that some of the legends that he follows and the coach was one of the guys that he mentioned. So we love Steve. He's a great personality and he kind of transcends, a couple of different worlds. So it was great to have him on. But he said the same thing. He said that there are certain horses that he's personally kind of pulling for because it would help, perpetuate the story of the industry.
Steve is a brilliant guy who absolutely follows the numbers if you know what he does for his day job, but he will tell you straight out that he will bet with his heart constantly. And he's happy to say it, but
Yeah, it's hard not to, especially on a big day like the Derby, because like you said, there's so many backstories that you're so involved in and really know like down to a T. I'm curious a little bit about the logistics of the cameras because Churchill Downs is huge and, you're directing so many different things, so many different angles, so many different locations. How many cameras are you guys going to have stationed around the track? And this kind of part B to that question, they're racing today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, like how much prep work and like kind of sampling do you do of the races leading up to the Derby?
Yeah, we have over 60 cameras. I don't have the exact number, but it is a sprawling venue, and we're definitely trying to capture as much as possible. Our trucks pulled in Saturday or Sunday of this week, so we have a full week of lead up. We know what the racing schedule is. We have the benefit of having done this for a long time. This is our 25th year producing the Kentucky Derby. So every year we gain more information. There's more about the cameras that we have out there that we trust and we know, they're set up correctly. They're going to work. And then we introduce new cameras. So, for example, last year we had something called a nucleus camera. That is this tiny camera that we placed right on the finish line directly across from the mirror. Some tracks have similar things. Churchill Downs didn't have one. So we implemented it for the first time last year. And it turned into a 3-way photo finish. So it was, very lucky that we did that for the first time out. And this year we're doubling down on it. So we had 1 last year. We're going to have 4 this year on either side of each track. So that's something we need to test and make sure is functioning properly. We've got jockey cameras, drones, the bat cam, which is my favorite shot that's been added to horse racing. That's the wire camera that we have all along the backstretch that gives you this just super dynamic, intimate look at the group traveling along the backstretch. So, realistically, we have on our schedule that by Thursday afternoon, all the cameras are up and firing and covering racing, so we can rehearse it with replays and know what we're seeing. They may be up a little bit earlier than that, but we have everybody ready to go by Thursday afternoon.
Gotcha. Well, thank you, first of all, for that wire camera, because it's frankly an embarrassing amount of tracks in America that do not have that camera. It's a pretty important angle, I would say.
Pretty important, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Only if you want to know who wins, Joe.
That's right.
That's all. It's not. Otherwise, it's no big deal.
Mildly important, but
Lindsay, what is your favorite part of this week? Is it when the draw comes out? Is it when that everything's working? Is it the production meeting? Like, for you personally, what is your favorite moment? Like you wake up in the morning and you're like, "Oh, cool, this is happening."
Yeah. You asked me personally. So the reality is, for me, it's probably Wednesday afternoon is our first full production meeting where just about everyone is here and we get to go through the format for the first time with everybody. And it's really the first time I get to see a lot of these people, particularly our announce team, who have become some of my closest friends. We have the most wonderful team that we work with. And it's the time that we have the most people together on site. Wednesday, but Derby in particular. So I just get this sort of rush of joy when we all sit down together and I see all these faces that, sometimes I only get to see once a year, maybe back at the Preakness and the Breeders' Cup, but this is really the beginning of it. So That's probably my favorite moment. I would say the most rewarding, covering a great race is one thing, but the most difficult part of the show that is so rewarding when we nail it is the walkover, because the way we do it is hop around from subject to subject, and we'll do maybe 12 interviews all in succession. And we've got our announcers running on a muddy track, whatever it is, from place to place with the cameras, and just all of the logistics that go into hopping around from one person to another. We have spotters with us to make sure we're identifying the right horses, because it's just absolute chaos in there. To do it right and the pacing is good and you meet so many characters at once is the most rewarding part of the show. So I look forward to that with nerves, but excitement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you guys have been rewarded for your coverage. You're a 6-time Sports Emmy Award winner. If you have any ideas for a show that's trying desperately to win awards and hasn't yet, please give us some award bait tip. But also it's such a fascinating production. And I think you guys have been rewarded in the way that the ratings keep getting better. Yeah. And I wonder how much pride you take in that, because it's not like the Super Bowl where, no matter what, hundreds of millions of people are going to watch. You really have to put the work in to teach people about these horses and about these stories. Like, have you been heartened and encouraged by the ratings continuing to go up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try not to follow ratings too much because you end up putting a lot of pressure on yourself, but I'm really encouraged by what I see. Last year was great. Obviously, we had Derby 150 and we were rewarded with this incredible race. But yeah, I think it's a testament to the audience. It's also really a testament to the event. And I do have to shout out Churchill Downs. They put on an incredible event each year, and it's obviously their major focus of the year, but the venue is incredible. The race is incredible. They put a lot into it. And I think, horse racing may not be quite as popular as it was, but this is still an event on every bucket list. People want to come, they want to watch it. They really see it as part of Americana, and just, it evolves, it modernizes, but there's so much nostalgia in it. The traditions really are there and have been there, many of them for 150 plus years. So I think that's why we really try to lean into a lot of that and make sure we're giving people the opportunity to see that element of it and teach them about the racing. Because as you mentioned, what I love about covering this sport in general is the stories. Covering the Super Bowl is great, and I love covering football, but, people know, well, Tom Brady's retired. I used to use him as an example, but let's say, people know Patrick Mahomes. It's always, you're trying so hard to find a different angle, but right. You get to the Derby, it's a new crop of 3-year-old horses every year. They all have different connections. Every year you're going to get a Lonnie Briley, you're going to get a Team Chunk of Gold, and you get to teach people about, who these people are, how they got here, what their dreams are. And I've always really enjoyed the blank slate of possibilities that the Derby brings.
Yeah. Yeah. Lindsay, my last question. So Joe and I are both very active in HISA, which is, trying to govern the industry and make a uniform set of rules and testing regulations and basically try to make the industry safer, for all athletes that are involved. Mm-hmm. We kind of lose track of this because we're so, insulated in our own industry. We think that that's a good thing. We know that that's going to help the sport, but you're trying to promote the sport, both to the audience and also within NBC, I'm sure. Are you finding that we've regained our social license, or is there still kind of some pushback from both sides as far as, hey, why are you covering this industry for 5.5 hours on a Saturday?
I think there will always be pushback. As you guys know, the biggest challenge in horse racing is that the number will never get to zero, even though it gets closer and closer and closer and real efforts are being made. So I think there will always be pushback, and that's inevitable. We certainly don't get much pushback about the Derby. I think partly because of what I just mentioned and these sort of bigger events. But yeah, there are questions out there, and it is delicate on our part too, because we want to enlighten the audience about the changes that are being made. And I think that's relevant, and it's right. Information that they should have, and it's important to what's going on out there. But we also try not to focus too much on it because we don't want to distract from the sport that's happening. We have to cover the event. We have to cover the sport. And people are tuning in for that as well. So yeah. It's walking a delicate line, but we're prepared for it. We talk about it a lot. We know, the updates to legislation, whatever it is, different rules and regulations that are being put in across the country. We have a meeting with the stewards and vets, and Lisa Lazarus will come visit us as well, just to inform our crew, usually on Thursday morning of these big race weeks, just to make sure we're all up to date and on the same page about what those protocols are.
Yep. No, I think you guys do a great job. And Joe and I were talking to Tarico a couple of months ago, and we asked him about how did you handle when Baffert was banned? I mean, he's such a big personality, and so many people identify him with the sport that when he's not there, it's like you can't ignore it. And I think you guys did Joe and I talk about it all the time. You guys did a really phenomenal job of that delicate dance of how much do we mention him, even though he's not here. And the same thing, I think, with the broader view of the social license. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. No, it's a good question.
There's so much needle threading and line walking and doing this broadcast, and you guys do an unbelievable job. So, Lindsay Schanzer, thank you so much for the time. Best of luck this week. We'll be watching and appreciate you taking our fans behind the curtain.
Thank you guys so much. Happy to be here.
Rail Talk is sponsored by Epic Insurance Brokers, one of the nation's top retail insurance brokers, providing expertise across key lines of insurance like property and casualty, employee benefits, unique specialty insurance. Our man, Chris Moore, leads Epic's equine specialty practice. You see him at the sales, the races, etc. Very, very passionate about this game, and that's who you want looking after your insurance needs. Just like, with the Green Group, you want someone who's passionate about this business. And John, I think you have a little tidbit about Chris and Epic.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about customer service, Joe. I'm literally sitting there at the sale last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, and signing the ticket, and I got a tap on my shoulder, and Chris is like, you want to insure that one? Which was awesome. And then fast forward to like 2 days ago, I get an email from Chris saying, hey, there's a rumor that you're in the process of selling the breeding rights of Sandman, and that his valuation has increased. Let me know if you want to increase his insurance as well. I mean, like, that is customer service to a T. Before I can even get, shit done on the phone, Chris is the one being proactive and saying, hey, this is what we need to do. And it wasn't just hey, I'm going to add Sandman, to your additional policy. It was, I've already spoken to a couple other carriers, and here's the other options you have. I mean, it was a full service, great answer by Chris Moore.
No, and he's the best. Like, he lives this, and, it's great. It's great being in business with your friends, but also your friends who are on top of things and know the industry inside and out. And that's what that's one of Chris's greatest attributes. You can give him a call or a text at 317-650-4519 to start the conversation. He'll take care of you. We guarantee it. And that brings us to this week's
Epic Performance of the Week.
Oh, I mean, the voiceover gets louder and louder every week, it feels like. This week's Epic Performance of the Week, before we talk about the fillies and Oaks, we got to talk about a mare who did a big thing on Friday at Keeneland closing day in the Bewitched. Shout out to Forever After All, winning the Bewitched by 9 lengths, which would be epic on its own. But then we learned later on from trainer Brendan Walsh that she is in-foal. She's preggers to Flightline and wins that race off, by a pole, despite having a little fight line inside of her. Shout out, that's like Serena Williams-esque. Remember when Serena was winning Grand Slams while she was pregnant? So that's pretty awesome, and I think that's just a really cool thing that fillies and mares are able to do. Obviously, you're probably only going to get 1 or 2 more starts out of her.
Right.
But yeah, John, have you seen anything like that before?
Joe, I had to go back about 30 plus years in my memory, and we did it with a race mare named Rolf's Ruby, who was a turf specialist, and we had retired her at the age of 7. Bred her to a New Jersey stallion named OK by You that we owned a piece of. And then, once she got pregnant in February, she was really putting on weight, feeling good, all dappled out, and was running around the field. And we decided to run her again at Monmouth that summer. And we ran her for a claiming price. And we had to announce over the loudspeaker that number 6, Rolf's Ruby, is pregnant to OK by You. And I think that actually deterred people from claiming us, the fact that she was pregnant. But she ran and she won. So, I mean, maybe there's something to this hormonal boost that goes on with the early. But you're right. It can only happen if the stallion and the mare are actually in the state you're racing in. They're not going to breed, a mare like that to Flightline and then send her out to Florida to race, for example. You got to keep her close to home. But that was a yeoman's effort to win that race at Keeneland. It wasn't like she ran like a rinky-dink race like we did in New Jersey at the time. She really earned the spot, and rightfully so. Epic Performance of the Week.
I was going to say, how many times would you have had to breed to OK by You to have it equal to Flightline's stud fee.
I'd still be doing it, and that was 30 plus years ago.
But yeah, shout out to Forever After All. That was super impressive and just a really cool, like, quirky thing that mares, fillies, and mares can do in this game. You never stop learning in this business, and I love those kind of like peculiarities about it. Okay, let's talk quickly about the Kentucky Oaks on Friday. There's a lot of really great racing. Obviously, you should watch the Breakaway show if you want to like get a real breakdown of the undercard races. Just real quick, I thought quality wise, the Ali Sheba might have been the best undercard race of the entire weekend. With fierceness in there and a bunch of really nice. That race should be a grade 1. Honestly, it gets a really nice field every single week. But yeah, you got Locked, Fierceness, Hall of Fame. So that's one to look forward to from a fan perspective, maybe not a betting perspective. Let's talk about the Oaks. Really interesting race, because this is the kind of race where I was saying with Jimmy, like you could single good cheer, or you could go like 7, 8, 9 deep in here, because she's 6-5 and she's a deserving favorite. She's undefeated. She's 6 for 6 in her career. She doesn't have to run one type of way. She can adjust to the pace scenario. She's got a huge turn of foot for a dirt horse, but her figures are such that she's only run a 91 like as her top. Is not head and shoulders over the rest of the field. And I thought that this was a race like the Derby that could potentially fall apart. You got the 2 Simply Joking, who's going to go. You got Fondly, who was close in the Virginia Oaks. Further down the field, you got Lacara, who's done her best racing on the lead. 5G just won the Gulfstream Oaks, going wire to wire. You got to think Tenma, the Bob Baffert horse, is going to be up close as well. Quiet Side from the outside, Anna's Promise, all horses that have shown speed. John, how did you see the Oaks?
Joe, I went the exact opposite in the Oaks that I did in the Derby. The Derby is a little bit of a chalk fest for me. I'm actually betting against the chalk in this race. Not only am I not betting good cheer, but I'm also not putting in show favorite, Lacara in there as well. I think that Lacara put in such a huge race going gate to wire in the Ashland. She had it her own way. I don't think it plays as well here in the Derby. I also look to see like which family lines can get the 9 panels, because that's not an easy thing to do. And I have the 2, 6, 8, 10 and all even box as it were, but I'm throwing out 2 of the favorites in Good Cheer and Lacara. Yeah, they can come back and beat me, but like you said, this race top to bottom has a lot of really, really great fillies, has some improving fillies, and I think that a sneaky one, Ballerina d'Oro, really improved on the dirt. She won last time out on a speed favoring track and came from off it. She won the one-turn Devona Dale. Ran third in the Devona Dale. She's run against the speed bias her past 3 races and has a first, second, and third all in graded stake races. I just think that going 9 furlongs, this daughter of Medaglia d'Oro is a horse that is going to be under the radar. You got Pratt, your man Pratt, as the jockey, riding Ballerina d'Oro for the first time. I just think that this is a race that you can say there's a lot of horses that are very even, and it may not ultimately work out for the best trip for Good Cheer, even though, like you said, she's undefeated. She's the best horse in the race. But it's 6-5, 4-5. I got to throw her out as far as handicapping. So I'm going 2, 6, 8, 10. Like I said, the all even exacta trifecta box.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to throw her out entirely, but I'm definitely going to try to beat her on the win end.
Yeah,
because like I said, she's not faster than the rest of these horses, even if her resume is unimpeachable. I agree with you on Ballerina d'Oro. I didn't love the Gazelle, but she was kind of taken out of her element and having to stalk in that race. If I'm right, and if the race is falling apart late, that race in the Demoiselle that she ran 3 back, I think is good enough to win this. Take Charge Milady, I agree with you, has a big shot. Ken McPeak did say she has an abscess,
right?
They're going to try to drain it and dry out before the race. So it's unclear, recording this on Tuesday morning, whether or not she's going to run. But I agree, if she runs and she's ready to go, she's got a huge shot, and the race will set up for her, I think. The other horse I would just throw in, like kind of underneath at a big price, is Quick Kick. I know she's got to get faster,
Right.
but this is the kind of race that could set up for her. Maybe a good cheer is like a little too close to a fast pace. She did beat Quiet Side on the Alcibiades last year. Third start off a layoff. Tom Amos is a really underrated trainer on these big days. I like Umberto Rispoli on the ride as well. She's going to be 1,000,000 to 1, and I think that she could get up for maybe third or fourth at a price. But yeah, it's a really fascinating race. Yeah. Just from a fan perspective, I hope Good Cheer doesn't just run away with this, because that would be really boring. And she's obviously a really nice horse, but I think this race is more fascinating than the 6-5 morning line would suggest. Rail Talk is sponsored by Fasig-Tipton. Fasig-Tipton's most famous current graduate is ready to rock and roll on Friday. Torpedo Anna in the La Troyenne. No bigger testament to the depth of the Fasig-Tipton sales calendar and catalogs than the fact that she was a $40,000 buy at the Fasig October sale. You've heard us wax poetic about the digital sales. You're going to see horses this week and this weekend running in big spots who have been bought from the digital sales. Just a very easy way to fill up your barn with nice horses who are ready to roll and are already in training. So you can go to digital.fasig-tipton.com to learn more. And then one other thing I want to mention, the catalog for the Mid-Atlantic May sale is online right now. 550 entries to be held Monday and Tuesday, May 19th through the 20th at the Maryland State Fairgrounds in Timonium, Maryland, right after the Preakness. Recent graduates of that sale include Straight No Chaser, champion sprinter. You also have Sacred Wish, who won the Matriarch and who's got a big shot this weekend. Full Count Felicia, Grade 1 winner in the EP Taylor. It's a really great showcase for horses to run to travel on the dirt as well. So go check out the catalog online now at Fasig-Tipton.com. West Point will be there. We'll be shopping. I'm sure John and Len will keep an eye on the proceedings as well. Print catalogs will be available, and they are available right now. So hope to see everybody down in Timonium for what we like to call the crab cake sale. Rail Talk is sponsored by our friends at Airdrie Stud and Mage. There's no better time to be considering Mage than Derby time. Mage, obviously the 149th Kentucky Derby winner by superstar stallion Good Magic out of Blue Hen Mare Puka. So there's no better immediate family for a young stallion I don't think that you can find right now. Obviously his accomplishments on the racetrack speak for themselves as well, but yeah, it's getting to crunch time. If you do still have a mare that you're looking for a stallion for, if not for this year, then strongly consider Mage for next year, because he stands for $25,000 right now, and I think that fee is only going to go up. So just really also want to shout out Airdrie Stud for sponsoring this contest. It's been a great partnership, and we have so much respect for Airdrie and everything to do, not just for Mage, but for the rest of their stallion roster too. West Point bought a Bo Liam colt at the April sale, so they do a really great job with those kind of middle market stallions. But I think Mage is going to be a top of the market stallion in short order, so definitely go check him out and go check out the website at airdriestud.com. That brings us to this week's update for the Mage Rage Derby contest. So I'm pretty impressed. Like I know the supplemental draft helped, but if you pop up the graphic right here, we put Baeza in there. So out of the 21 potential horses in the Derby, we've got 17 of them covered. Yeah. So that's pretty damn impressive. Just to run through it real quick, I've got Rodriguez, American Promise, Grande, and Sandman. Michelle has Citizen Bull, Luxor Cafe, Chunk of Gold, and Baeza if he draws in. Sam has Journalism, East Avenue, Publisher, and Owen Almighty. And John, once the King of the Hill, is reduced to rooting for Tistastic, Coal Battle, and Sovereignty. And
those are three really good candidates.
You're right.
I think if anything, it's Dan that's being reduced. But Dan didn't do his homework before the draft, so that's what happens.
Let's stop the Dan bashing. I just saw that ABR's coverage leading up to the Derby won an award of some sort. So shout out to Dan. And shout out to ABR. John loves making him his punching bag, but Dan still has a shot. Let's go throw up the standings. Yep. Sam is in first place leading into the big race at 39.25. I'm in second at 29.75. John's in third at 26.7. Michelle's in fourth at 19.15. And then Dan fifth, 17.275. His number is going to be like a pie level length, I think, by the end of this contest. But it's wide open. Just a reminder, 15 points go to the winner of the Derby, 10 points go to the second place horse, and then I believe 7.5, 5, and then 2.5 for 5th place. They can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So it's anybody's ball game, and I'm just so stoked that we have so much action, John, leading into the race.
Well, I mean, that was the whole genesis behind the contest. It wasn't just for marketing or advertising to talk about how awesome Mage is, which he is, but it was also to get some enthusiasm and excitement, and also some bragging rights. Because quite frankly, you know, the 5 of us kind of kick each other in the head whenever possible. So this is like the equivalent of having like the belt, the winning trophy, as it were, for this contest. And hopefully, Joe, this will be the first of many.
Yeah. No, it's been great fun, and I appreciate obviously Airdrie, but also appreciate Sam and Dan and Michelle for being a part of it. And yeah, we'll be back with one more. We'll recap next week. Obviously, the most important thing is the Mage Rage Derby contest, and then we'll get into the rest of the show next week. So we're looking forward to that. Best of luck to everybody. Safe trips to everybody. And I think that's a good way to sign off for today for episode 88 of Rail Talk. It was a great time. Shout out to Lindsay Schanzer for coming on, giving us a little peek behind the curtain of what when you're watching it on TV on Saturday and Friday, just know how much work goes into producing that level of intricacy and complication for a 5.5 hour broadcast with only a handful of minutes of racing time. So shout out to Lindsay, shout out to the team at NBC Sports, shout out to John Green. See you down in Louisville, my friend. Enjoy your buff and blow. And thanks to Patty Wolf, our producer, and our associate producers, Juliet Gresta and Nathan Wilkinson. Look at the Sandman shirt. Cannot wait. Let's get the money. Let's get the big trophy this Saturday. See you guys next week back here on Rail Talk.